Okay, so today I'm going to talk about ginkgo trees, and specifically, I've noticed a lot of people are hesitant to plant female ginkgo trees, but female ginkgo trees are actually really not that bad. I mean, yeah, the fruits that they produce, they are stinky, but like if you're just like standing like under it in the fall, you're not really going to smell it too bad. It's only if you're like on the ground smelling them for some reason, or if you're like holding them in your hand or something, or sniffing them or something, but you're not really going to smell it from a distance. And the fruits contain seeds. Those seeds are edible for people if they're processed right, if they're cooked and all that. And also squirrels and certain wildlife will eat them, and so they're also good for wildlife. And the fruits are actually really beautiful too in the fall because the leaves turn yellow, and that combined with the bright orange fruits is just beautiful. And it's also really cool to see the fruits of a prehistoric tree, to see a fruits of like a dinosaur tree is kind of cool, you know what I'm saying? Like a tree that's lived during the dinosaurs, to see the fruits of that is really cool, I think. And yeah, I think that, female ginkgo trees are also really important because they produce seeds, and those seeds have a lot of genetic diversity because of genetic recombination. And it seems also that seeds have a higher chance of having certain kind of mutations, just small ones usually, but sometimes those mutations can actually benefit the tree, or I should say its offspring, I mean, and make them more resistant to diseases or whatever. And the typical way that the male ginkgo cultivars like autumn gold are grown is that they're grown from clones. So they cut off a branch, they get it to root or whatever, and it starts a new tree. The problem with that is there's no genetic recombination and there's not many mutations, and so they're all genetically the same. So if one gets a disease, they all get that same disease. And I'm worried that, because ginkgos are actually endangered in the wild, and they're only really somewhat common because people are growing them, but most people are growing the cultivars, and the cultivars, they're not exactly like the prehistoric ginkgo, which makes me sad. But the other thing is that they're genetically weaker. They're cultivars are like basically plants that have been bred to do something, that have been selected. They select features from the plant that they like, but the plant didn't evolve like that for a reason. And so, there's a reason that plants, don't have, like ginkgos, don't have, goofy variegated leaves or something weird like that. There's a reason it didn't evolve like that. It's obviously not beneficial to the plant. For example, this is just an example, variegated leaves might make the leaves more visible to animals that might eat it, and so it can make the plant more susceptible to predation because it stands out more, for example. There's a lot of like things where cultivars are just not as strong as the original species, the wild form of the species, or the closest thing to the wild form. Um, Basically, it's just the way the species has evolved. The way it's found in nature is the best thing, best kind of ginkgo to grow is the kind that are not cultivars. And it's not too hard right now to get the straight species. You can just buy like seeds on Etsy or whatever, and those seeds have a 50-50 chance being male or female. And ginkgos are really tough too. Ginkgos can tolerate clay soil, they can tolerate sandy soil, they can grow in almost any sunlight. Although they do prefer full sun, they will tolerate some shade as well. They do also tolerate occasional flooding, although they don't want to grow in soil that's always swampy and wet. But outside of that, I mean, they're pretty tough. They do, like I said, tolerate occasional flooding. They tolerate pretty much most soil in people's yards and in general, sandy or not. Again, they prefer sandier soil, but they don't need it. They can grow in clay just fine as well. I've seen them growing just fine in clay. I know they can grow just fine in clay. And they're also air pollution tolerant, road salt tolerant. They're amazing trees to grow. Even though they're not native to the U.S., they're not invasive here, and they're just really beautiful. And I think it's a shame that I don't see as many female ginkgo trees, because like I said, it's really cool to see the prehistoric fruit. And also, if somebody wants to grow more, they can very easily do it from seeds from those trees, if they were more common. And the other thing is that you know, those fruits also provide the seeds inside the fruit, I mean, also provide some food for wildlife like squirrels and stuff. And people can also eat the seeds as well, which is another benefit of having female ginkgo trees around. And also, they're just really beautiful fruits. They're just really cool. It's another part of the plant. It's another part of a prehistoric plant, and it's just kind of a bummer that we don't see it often. But yeah, if you want to see female ginkgo fruit from a ginkgo tree, the best way is to simply just grow them from seed. You'll get a 50-50 chance. You need a male and a female tree to produce fruit. But the male doesn't produce the fruit. The male just makes pollen, which is why these cultivars can't fruit. And then the female actually produces the fruit from the pollen when it gets pollinated. And the fruit is technically not even a fruit. It's actually a cone, which is pretty interesting. Ginkgos are just fascinating. They're also the only living member of their genus, family, order, and class, and phylum. Basically, what that means is they have no living relatives. They have no, like, cousins. There's no plants that are related to them. Pretty much every other tree has tons of living cousins, but ginkgos are literally the only living member of their pretty much everything. They're very special for that reason. And like I said, they're actually endangered in the wild. There's only a few tiny populations in China, and because of climate change and habitat destruction and all that stuff, you know, they're pretty high risk, those populations, for going extinct. So it's very important that we grow ginkgos, and especially like I said, the straight species, to preserve those kind of wild genetics. And it's really cool to see the female trees make fruit. That, like I said, the fruit are, yeah, they're stinky, but it's not as bad as most people say, and they're really beautiful, and they do benefit wildlife and stuff, and as well as people who might want to eat the seeds as well. And they're just really cool. I mean, they're just beautiful. And I wonder, you know, why the fruit is stinky. My guess would be that it probably evolved as a way to get animals that eat dead things, maybe, to try to eat the fruit. You know, because it has a strong smell, and they'd be attracted to it, and then they eat the fruit and crap out the seed. Maybe that's why they evolved to be stinky. Who knows? But it's not that bad, as a lot of people say. Oh, it's so bad. It's really not in most cases, especially if it's just in your yard. Like, if you're not directly smelling the fruit with your, like, it's in your hand, you're sniffing it. If you're not, like, sniffing it and it's just laying in the ground, like laying on the ground, it's really not that bad. And they're just beautiful trees, and the fruit, like I said, are just beautiful, orange colored. They kind of look like, sort of like apricots, I guess, is kind of what they look like. They're kind of waxy too, which is interesting on the outside. Really interesting. And yeah, so female ginkgo trees are cool, and they're really good for genetic diversity because they produce seeds, and those seeds have a lot of genetic diversity. Whereas, like I said, the cultivars, the male cultivars, they're all clones of the same plant, of the exact same, like, individual, and they're not from seeds, and they don't have that genetic diversity. So it's like the Gros Michel banana. If one is susceptible to a disease, if one of those cultivars is susceptible to a disease, then all of the other plants of that cultivar are all equally susceptible. Cultivars are basically like, because their genetics are messed up too, because they're a cultivar and they're not how you would naturally find the plant in nature, they're kind of like like an inbred king or something. They're like, their genetics are really messed up, and they're more likely to have all these health issues, and they're weaker. And yeah, cultivars of any plant are really not good, especially ginkgos, because they're all genetic clones of the same tree, and they can't even produce fruit and can't produce seeds. So cultivars suck. Straight species of ginkgo, like the original, like, flat species that's not been, you know, modified genetically by people, That's the way to go. Healthier genetics. It's the way it evolved. It's the way that it probably was during the dinosaurs. You know, it's really cool to see that the exact species. And you can, like I said, you can get these seeds on like Etsy. You can get these seeds online on a bunch of different websites. And they do need cold stratification, which just means they need a few months of cold. They need to be cold and moist for a few months. You can put them in a kind of a moist paper towel, put them in wet sand or whatever. There's different ways to do it, and put it in your fridge. Or you can also, if it's winter, you can stick them in the ground if there's enough winter left, and do it naturally that way wherever you want to plant it. There's different ways, and then in the summer they should come up. But they're really cool. They're really cool. They're fun to grow. They're not invasive. They're the only living member of their everything. And female ginkgo trees are really underrated. I feel like they're such cool, beautiful trees. And I just have this picture of a ginkgo leaf, or drawing of a ginkgo leaf right here, because I don't know, why not? I needed something to film, I guess, while I was talking, so I just drew this. So the scientific name is ginkgo biloba, and then you can see my little drawing of a ginkgo leaf, because why not? But yeah.